Hi, today we're going to analyse My Father Carries Me Across a Field by George Szirtes. It's a tricky poem, but fantastic. And if you're going to use this video to revise with, and I think you should, then click on the link below in the description box, copy and annotate the poem and see if you can come up with your own thesis statement and introduction. Then come back and we'll go through the process together and see how far we agree. You can leave your thesis statement or introduction in the comments section for feedback. So, happy annotating. And I'll put a link to TPCASTT on there to help you along. Occasionally students open up a paper one and there's a collective intake of breath. I like to think that they're marvelling at the artistry that the IB has served up for them. It's a bit like seeing the Sistine Chapel for the very first time. Suddenly, all our moments together make sense, and they appreciate the beauty of the written word and the wonder of life. That's what happened when this poem came up in the November 2015 SL paper. It's possibly my second favourite poem on today's list, or top 2 favourite poems. That's right, George, you're second, so don't get too big for your boots. You're behind the incomparable Bloodhound gang with their mega hit Bad Touch, for which they were controversially denied a Grammy Award, in my opinion, in the biggest heist since the Hatton Garden robbery. Anyway, like the Bloodhound gang, George Szirtes asks the big questions about life and unsurprisingly comes up with a very different answer. Without further ado, let's get into what this poem's all about. The first T in TPCASTT stands for the title, and that's the first thing we've got to get to grips with. The title and opening line. My father carries me across a field. They function on a simple, literal level and raise a couple of questions. What field? And who are they? And these are the questions you'll need to answer in your response. The first 2 verses describe a hostile environment. It's night and there are trenches filled with snow, thick mud. Night suggests darkness, obviously, so it's difficult for them to see where they are heading. On top of that, there are trenches filled with snow. Trenches might suggest a war zone, and snow implies winter and the potential for hypothermia or death if they fall into one. The incomplete sentence, thick mud, is ambiguous. Are the trenches filled with mud too? Or is it the field? Or both? The uncertainty reflects the character's uncertainty and indicates how difficult it is to move or make progress in such an environment. The short sentence, thick mud, with its spondaic metre and heavy consonants, also emphasises how difficult it is to move across the field. The obstacles continue. We're careful to remain concealed from something frightening I don't yet know. Not only is the natural environment hostile, but there's something predatory out there. The layout, with concealed coming at the end of the verse, demonstrates the unknown nature of the predator. The second verse ends with, we go where we have to go. They are driven by need. The hostile environment determines their destination and not their desires or whims. So the first 2 verses, in this case tercets, are written in the present tense with relatively simple vocabulary that's mainly monosyllabic and can be taken quite literally. A family traversing a hostile environment. Verse 3 shifts the perspective. It opens with a question in the past tense. Did I dream it? And refers to the 100-acre wood and the owl and the ass from Winnie the Pooh. The reference suggests the journey is being reimagined by the child. His present situation, cosy and clean in bed, is juxtaposed with the journey. We are floating, our arms linked over the landscape. It creates a surreal moment in the poem, and it's difficult for the reader to know which situation is most real. It's ironic, however, that the narrator feels he was asleep on the journey, but is awake in the bed. That perspective doesn't last, however, and the final verses introduce another shift. At first, the use of the declarative and present tense makes it appear as though the narrator is back in the initial scene. My father moves ahead of me. But then the diction changes. The father is compared to some strange, almost extinct species. The words species, extinct, and later extinction indicate this is more likely to be an adult reflecting on the journey. Furthermore, the simile changes the perspective from the specific to the general. The word species suggests he's not just the narrator's father, but the species of fathers, all fathers. And I follow him in dread across the field towards my own extinction. The field has also ceased to be a particular field. It's now the field of life, and this is their journey across it. It's possible to abstract this a level further. In literature, civilization and culture are often represented by the masculine element, the father. Nature is represented by the feminine element, as in Mother Nature. At its worst, the culture we inherit from our fathers is the patriarchy. At its best, however, it's civilization. The ideas, the buildings, the electricity supply, the central heating systems, the clean water that protects us from the ravages of Mother Nature. Ultimately, this poem suggests Mother Nature will destroy everything and chaos will return. The idea of destruction is emphasized in the next two lines. The terrain is blasted like some post-apocalyptic scene, and there are spirits, dead beings, drifting across it. It reminds me of the opening scenes of Macbeth, with the witches on the heath. These spirits, however, are subject to the ravages of Mother Nature. The winter cold makes no distinction between them and us. The living and the dead, or the living dead, are subject to the hostile environment. The next sentence, my father looks round and smiles, then turns away, has a finality about it. It gives the impression the father has done all he can to get them this far. Turns away suggests it's now up to the son to pick up the burden and struggle his way across the field. The narrator then offers an existential comment. We have no function in this place but to keep moving. Ultimately, it seems as if their journey across the landscape is meaningless. The final three lines switch from the first to the third person. Lost figures who leave only a blank page behind them. The journey across this landscape is our journey. We are the lost figures, and the symbolism of blank page suggests we leave nothing of value behind. The final line is cast adrift from the rest of the poem, just as the characters are adrift in the field. They pass across as they might cross a stage. Again, it's reminiscent of Macbeth's life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and yet it's even more bleak. At least Macbeth's players had sound and fury on their side. In this poem, Szirtes' characters have nothing. The formula TPCASTT ends by returning to the title and then deducing a theme. So let's see if we can work our thesis statement and theme into an introduction. The poem, My Father Carries Me Across a Field, depicts both the literal journey across a hostile environment and a symbolic journey in which our fathers and our culture struggle to sustain us over the field of life. The structure of the poem, 7 tercets with a terza rima rhyme scheme, drives the characters on, and the frequent use of enjambment across the verses means it's difficult for the readers and the characters to predict where they are going and what is coming next on this journey. Ultimately, the poem portrays life as a meaningless journey across a hostile landscape, hunted by predators, with extinction as its final destination. Whew! Now I understand what that sharp intake of breath meant. Show me the prose option. What are the IB playing at putting this on an SL paper? Personally, I find Szirtes' assessment of our predicament too bleak. And more importantly, it comes up short when measured against the profound biological insights of the Bloodhound gang. You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do it on the Discovery Channel. Now, George, that's what I call poetry. So, dear viewer, I hope you found this annotation useful. Leave some love in the comment section below, and if you have a different interpretation, leave that too. This is Think Inc. thanking you.